Before we proceed, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by the press.
The courtroom had no cameras, no live broadcasts, no journalists capturing images from the gallery. Yet the events that unfolded inside, the revelations spoken behind those sealed doors, rippled through Hollywood with devastating force. Jamie Foxx, widely regarded as one of the most talented and multifaceted actors of his generation, stood as a witness. Those in attendance confirmed he wasn't performing. His hands shook. His voice wavered. Then suddenly he collapsed into raw emotion, weeping and shouting before the jury as he described what he witnessed that terrible night at Sean Diddy Combs' estate. Leaked court documents, along with sketches and first-hand accounts, revealed a disturbing scene. This was not the Jamie Foxx the world recognized, the charismatic, self-assured star. This was a man tormented. As he spoke, the courtroom fell into stunned silence. The horror wasn't just in what he had seen. It was in how it had been concealed, how meticulously it had been controlled, and how, for so long, fear had kept anyone from daring to expose it. Before we continue, I just want to say, real stories like this take time to research, verify, and tell responsibly. If you're finding value in what you're hearing, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep uncovering the truth together. Your support truly makes a difference. Jamie Foxx's connection to Sean Diddy Combs was well documented over the years. In public, they often shared laughs, exchanged friendly jabs during award show after parties, and even posed for pictures that screamed luxury, brotherhood, and power. But according to leaked notes from the federal court's first week, that brotherhood was nothing more than a mask, a carefully curated illusion that crumbled the night Jamie accepted an invitation to spend the night at Diddy's infamous mansion. In his emotional testimony, Jamie started by explaining the relationship. "We all wanted to be part of the circle," he said. "Diddy's house was where the music lived, the deals, the energy. It was like entering a palace of influence." But what Jamie didn't realize, according to his words under oath, was that some parties weren't meant for celebration. They were meant for initiation. That night, Foxx recounted being led into a private wing of the mansion after an evening of heavy drinking and luxury lounging. "There were people I didn't recognize, people who weren't artists, producers, or executives, people who looked uncomfortable." His voice reportedly dropped to a whisper. "They told me to stay, to relax." That Diddy had a surprise. He described the atmosphere shift, the way the lights dimmed, the laughter faded, and the guests began separating into smaller, secretive rooms. One of Diddy's aides allegedly escorted Foxx to a soundproof theater inside the mansion, where a video had already been queued up. "I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. They said this is where we bond." What followed, Foxx said, left him mentally wrecked for years. "It was like nothing I'd ever seen. I didn't know if it was real or staged, but I know what I felt. My stomach dropped. I got up. I wanted to leave. But the doors were locked. They told me to watch, said everyone whose somebody has been through this." His account sent chills through the courtroom, according to a reporter who had spoken to someone present. Foxx reportedly paused, took a long breath, and said, "I never asked to see that, and I've spent every day since trying to forget it." The judge, according to transcripts, called for a 5-minute recess to allow Foxx to recover his composure. After the break, Foxx returned to the witness stand with red eyes and shaking hands. The courtroom fell silent again, and what followed was described as a damning breakdown of Hollywood's most whispered-about secret, the protection of power at all costs. Jamie stated, "When I tried to leave that night, they handed me a glass of something, said it would help me calm down. I didn't drink it. I just said I needed to go. I remember Diddy looking at me, cold, like he knew what I saw but didn't care, like it was part of the plan." But the emotional damage wasn't what hit the courtroom hardest. It was the aftermath. Foxx claimed that in the days that followed, calls started coming in. They weren't threats exactly, just reminders to keep quiet, to stay close. "They offered me a deal, an NDA wrapped in a check, 7 figures. He refused, but that's when, according to him, the pushback started." Foxx testified that for years afterward, he experienced a slow decline in major offers, unexplained delays in project funding, and ghosting from producers who had once called him a star. "It was a freeze-out quiet, but it was real, and I knew why." The courtroom transcript quoted him saying, "I watched careers disappear. People who asked questions just vanished from the conversation. Not dead, just erased. He then went on to describe how other celebrities had confided in him over the years, people who had similar experiences but were too afraid to speak. You think I'm the only one? You think I'm brave? I'm not. I'm just tired. A gasp reportedly echoed through the gallery when Foxx mentioned by name 3 other well-known entertainers who he claimed were at that mansion during similar parties. The names were redacted in the official court transcript, but multiple outlets have suggested one was a Grammy-winning rapper, another a beloved late-night host, and the third an actress known for activism. Foxx closed this part of his testimony by saying, "We wear smiles, suits, sunglasses, but behind it, a lot of us are broken. Some things you can't unsee." The courtroom grew darker in tone as Jamie Foxx leaned forward to explain the most chilling part of his experience. Not just what he saw that night at Diddy's mansion, but what he learned afterward. What began as a disturbing and surreal encounter spiraled into something deeper, more calculated, and far more terrifying than he'd ever imagined. This wasn't just about a strange party or a few off-color incidents. It was about systematic control, leverage, and blackmail. Jamie's tone shifted from emotional to analytical as he spoke about the existence of a hidden archive, an alleged vault of digital recordings stored within an encrypted server somewhere on Diddy's estate. He hadn't seen the room himself, but he claimed that several insiders, including a former house manager and 2 security guards who have since disappeared from the public eye, confirmed its existence. They described it as a surveillance nerve center, complete with monitors, secured hard drives, and locked cabinets that only a few had access to. They kept everything, Jamie said, pausing to let the words settle in the air. Not just clips of people partying. They filmed things they knew no one wanted public. They filmed it without consent. Hidden cameras, some in bedrooms, some in hallways, bathrooms. People didn't know. You'd think it's just a wild night, but what you didn't know was, someone was always recording. He explained that the collection wasn't just a hobby or some trophy room. It was, in his words, a currency of secrets. Footage of celebrities, politicians, executives, athletes. Jamie mentioned that many of them had no idea they'd been filmed in compromising positions, some intoxicated, others engaged in what could only be described as disturbing or non-consensual behavior. It wasn't just about watching, he added. It was about owning people, making sure no one ever turned against them. Insurance policies. Foxx recounted a moment a few months after his visit to the mansion. A package arrived at his production office. No return address, just his name in sharp black marker. Inside, a flash drive, and on it, a distorted video. Grainy footage of the theater room where Jamie had been that night. His face, his reactions, caught on hidden cameras. The angle clearly indicated it wasn't filmed with his knowledge. No audio, just his expressions as he watched whatever played on the screen. The final frame on the drive was a black screen with a single phrase, "Just remember." Foxx said he stared at that screen for over an hour. He didn't sleep that night. "I thought it was a warning," he said. "I was being told, we see you. We own your silence." And I'll be honest, after that, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't know who to trust. Every time I saw another story in the headlines, someone else being accused, or someone mysteriously backing away from the industry, I wondered, were they filmed too? He alleged that these archives had been weaponized multiple times, used to shut down lawsuits, silence accusers, even force endorsements or public support from people who had privately cut ties with Diddy. Some of the people you see out there defending him, Jamie said, they're not defending him because they like him. They're defending him because they're scared. Because they don't want their footage to surface. One of the most damning moments in the testimony came when Jamie spoke of a late-night phone call he received from a well-known actress who had also stayed at the mansion. He didn't reveal her name in court, but described her as someone America viewed as a sweetheart. She was crying. She said she had received a video of herself passed out, with someone hovering over her, someone she didn't recognize. She was panicking. She didn't know if it had gone further. She didn't know if anyone would believe her. And I didn't know what to tell her, Foxx admitted. The judge called for a pause after this segment, reportedly concerned about the emotional toll being taken on Foxx, who had grown increasingly distressed. Before stepping down from the stand for a break, Jamie issued one last chilling comment. They don't just collect secrets. They manufacture silence. They build a cage made of your worst moments. And then they hold the key. By this point, the mood in the courtroom had shifted entirely. This wasn't just about one man's crimes. It was about the possibility of a sprawling system built on manipulation, fear, and control. And the longer Jamie spoke, the more it became clear. Diddy's empire, if true, wasn't just constructed for music or business deals. It was built on leverage, the kind that doesn't just ruin careers, the kind that ends lives. When court resumed after a short recess, Jamie Foxx returned to the stand visibly shaken, but more resolute. What he said next would leave the courtroom in stunned silence. He recounted how, weeks after receiving the flash drive, two men approached him outside a restaurant in Los Angeles. Dressed like security or bodyguards, they didn't identify themselves. One simply handed him a phone, said he wants to talk, and stepped back. On the other end of the line was Diddy. The voice was calm, collected. Diddy didn't threaten Jamie directly, but what he said chilled him to his core. "I hope you're not planning on saying anything you'll regret, my man," Diddy reportedly said. "That's the kind of thing that can mess up legacies. You're a legend, Jamie. Don't lose that over something that isn't your business." It wasn't the words alone, it was the implication. That Diddy had eyes on him. That he could reach him anywhere, anytime. Jamie testified that after the call, he found himself constantly looking over his shoulder. He changed his phone, canceled appearances, and began moving with private security. He said he believed it was no coincidence that shortly after this encounter, a story surfaced in a gossip outlet, implying Jamie was involved in a scandal he insisted was fabricated. "It was a warning shot," he said. "It was like he was telling me, we can build a lie around you just as fast as we can destroy you with the truth." In court, Jamie explained how Diddy's world wasn't just about celebrity and wealth. It was about surveillance, silence, and power. He described how guests at parties were often required to hand over their phones, ostensibly for privacy reasons. But after what he had experienced, Jamie said he believed those phones were cloned. He claimed insiders told him that messages, contacts, even voicemails were copied and archived. "People think the danger was in what they did at those parties," Jamie said. "But the real danger was in what they took from you. Your data, your voice, your fear." A prosecutor presented evidence of NDAs signed by dozens of high-profile guests who attended parties at Diddy's estates. These documents were more aggressive than typical confidentiality agreements. Some included clauses that warned against expressing negative experiences or accounts in public settings. And Jamie confirmed that he had been asked to sign something similar. He refused. But that, he said, was when everything changed. His brand endorsements began to fall through. A film project he was developing was suddenly dropped by its distributor. Studios stopped returning calls. "It was like I became radioactive overnight," Jamie said. "I wasn't blacklisted for doing something wrong. I was blacklisted for not playing along." The court grew increasingly captivated and horrified as Jamie delved deeper into what he called the mechanics of the mansion. He began to describe specific rooms he was shown during his overnight stay at Diddy's compound. Rooms that didn't appear on the blueprints. He recalled being led through a hallway behind a bookcase, which opened into a surveillance control room staffed by two quiet men who never made eye contact. This wasn't a tour. It felt like an intimidation tactic. He testified that one of the men showed him a monitor with feeds from throughout the house. Bedrooms, spas, private lounges. "I didn't ask to see anything," Jamie clarified. "But they wanted me to know that they had everything." He asked who had access to recordings. The response was simple. Only him, referring to Diddy. If you're finding this coverage insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more in-depth reports like this to light. Drop a comment below. What's your take on these revelations? Stay tuned for more. Later that night, Jamie was told that his bedroom was down a different hallway from where the other guests were staying. He thought it was odd. The room was opulent but cold. No windows, cameras clearly visible in the corners. "I didn't feel like a guest," Jamie said. "I felt like a suspect in an interrogation room." He tried to sleep but couldn't. Around 2 a.m., he heard faint music and laughter. He stepped out to see a procession of individuals in robes walking through the hallway toward the theater room. Jamie followed at a distance and witnessed what he could only describe as a ritualistic gathering. Guests were being handed drinks, some blindfolded, some filmed. At the center of the room, Diddy stood, orchestrating everything with a smile. What disturbed Jamie the most was the presence of handlers, men who weren't guests but facilitators. They kept track of everyone, ensured the cameras rolled, whispered in ears. Jamie believed they weren't just filming. They were documenting behavior for leverage. When the event ended, Jamie went back to his room, but found the door ajar. Inside, Everything was untouched except for a photo of him and Diddy from years ago, now sitting on the nightstand. He swore it hadn't been there before. On the back, a handwritten note, Brotherhood. In his final day of testimony, Jamie's emotional shield fully broke. His voice cracked as he described a visit he received months later from an FBI agent. This agent, who requested anonymity and had reportedly been investigating Diddy for years, reached out unofficially. According to Jamie, the agent claimed there were over 30 sealed complaints involving misconduct, trafficking, and extortion connected to Diddy and his associates, but none had made it past grand juries. Jamie asked why. The agent reportedly said he's protected. Top-level connections. People in places you wouldn't believe. That's when Jamie dropped the biggest bombshell of the trial. He claimed the agent told him there were sealed documents implicating a former U.S. president in attending at least one of Diddy's exclusive fundraisers, one where surveillance tapes were believed to be recorded. Jamie made it clear he didn't know if anything illegal happened, but he said it was no coincidence that high-ranking individuals had avoided association with the investigation. Jamie said the agent warned him, if you go public, you won't just be going up against Diddy. You'll be going up against the whole machine. He closed his testimony with tears streaming down his face, pleading not just for justice, but for the public to understand. This isn't about revenge. It's about stopping something that's been hidden for too long. This is bigger than music, bigger than me. And if something happens to me after this, I want the world to know. I told the truth. As Jamie Foxx continued his testimony, he detailed a chilling night during his visit that he called the blackout incident. It wasn't just metaphorical. He described how, at around 2 a.m., the entire estate plunged into sudden darkness. At first, Jamie thought it was a power outage, but the timing felt off. The music had stopped abruptly, the hallway lights blinked twice, and then silence. He remembered stepping into the hallway, where the air had turned cold, not just from the air conditioning, but from a tension that wrapped around the house like a storm cloud. Everyone froze, Jamie said. The vibe shifted. No one was laughing. No one was talking. It was like they'd been through this before. A tall man in a suit, whom Jamie described as too serious for a party, emerged from one of the rooms and said, "No phones, no cameras, everyone back inside." Jamie, confused and unnerved, returned to his room, but curiosity got the better of him. He crept down the hallway, peeking through a cracked door where strange sounds echoed from within. Whispers, something metallic clanging, and then a scream. A muffled one. Male. He wouldn't say who he saw, but he did confirm that what he witnessed was not a party game and not consensual. He saw shadows moving, figures standing in a circle, and what looked like someone being restrained. He described a woman walking calmly through the room with a small notepad, marking something down. Then she made eye contact with him through the crack in the door. She didn't scream. She didn't alert anyone. She just smiled, then shut the door in his face. Jamie fell back, stunned. That's when I knew, he told the jury, this wasn't a home. This was a theater, a stage where people were made into props. Jamie's voice cracked as he recalled the final part of his stay, the upstairs level that was strictly off-limits. At the party, guests were told not to go upstairs unless invited. But Jamie, trying to find a restroom and avoiding a crowd in the hallway, accidentally opened the wrong door and found himself at the bottom of a staircase. It was dimly lit with red emergency bulbs, and a faint hum came from above. He swore he saw two people at the top of the stairs, whispering. One looked directly at him. "You lost?" the man asked coldly. Jamie apologized and turned back, but not before catching a glimpse of what looked like a heavy black curtain or sheet hanging in the hallway, and under it, faint white light blinking. "That's where they store the real treasures," he remarked bitterly. "Not treasures of joy, but of proof, hidden truths, power." Later, a confidant revealed the upstairs was reserved for private gatherings. "What kind of gatherings?" Jamie pressed. The reply chilled him. "The kind where favors are exchanged at a price." Those words would follow him for years. As Jamie Foxx's testimony approached its conclusion, the prosecutor finally voiced the question hanging over the courtroom. "What took you so long to speak out?" Jamie lowered his gaze, steadied himself, and answered. "Fear," he confessed. "Not for my career. That's meaningless. Fear for my safety, my loved ones, everyone around me." You can't grasp the extent of his influence. This goes beyond entertainment. It's about enforced silence. People don't just vanish physically. They're erased from prominence, from the business, from any safety net. He detailed years of retaliation against those who dared oppose Diddy. Legal attacks, vanished opportunities, mysterious surveillance, sudden terminations. They freeze you out, he explained. No blood spilled, just wiped from existence. But as evidence mounted, Cassie's account, insider testimonies, the federal probe, Jamie realized silence was no longer an option. Staying quiet meant becoming part of it. I couldn't bear that weight any longer. His closing statement sent tremors through the room. Hollywood sells fantasies, but it runs on buried truths. And he's hoarded more than anyone. Maybe my voice can shatter whatever hold he's maintained over us all. When the judge suspended proceedings, observers saw jurors discreetly brushing away tears. The hush that fell wasn't merely procedural. It was the quiet of revelation, the stillness when a star's carefully constructed world fractures completely. And suddenly, the truth stands exposed, with nowhere left to retreat.
This has been an explosive testimony, and there's much more to uncover. If you found this breakdown revealing, smash that like button, share it to spread awareness, and subscribe to stay updated on the latest developments. Your support fuels this channel's mission to bring truth to light. Drop a comment with your thoughts. We read everyone, stay vigilant, and we'll see you in the next video.